Arlette. You will see I'm in a different setting, and I have a special guest on this side. This is my pawpaw, that's what we call him. Some people might know him as Jimmy or Uncle Jimmy, right?
I'm her grandfather.
Yes.
I'm your grandfather.
All right, so he is joining me today, and we're gonna have a conversation about suffering. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So you can kick us off.
Okay, I made myself some notes just to make certain that I kind of go in some logical order. Basically, we all show up in this world not knowing anything, supposedly, like an empty slate. But we all also know that while that seems to be the truth, we come with some capacity or tendency to be different from one another. This is my granddaughter. She has a twin sister, and they couldn't be more different. And they ate the same food, slept in the same bed, had the same parents, went to the same school. So I'm thinking that we sort of show up in this world like we've maybe been here before and we got some unfinished business. Problems we didn't solve
in another life.
In the previous life, okay? So we show up and we don't know anything. We don't know languages or anything like that. But we learn something about our individualized nature. We find out that we have a name. And we find out and are taught that everybody and everything else are not me. I'm me, and then there's everything else. And then as we grow up, we start to get labels of how we are, how we show up. Oh, she's cute, or he's handsome, or he's smart, or he's slow. And we start to hear a lot of this about ourselves. We get it from our parents initially, our brothers and sisters. We get it from our teachers. And we adopt these. We accept these descriptions as who we are, how we are. And they kind of set up some limits and some expectations about how our life is going to go based on these descriptions. And we also, as we get a little older, still real young, we start to understand that we want this, and we like this, but we don't want that, and we don't like that. And so we sort of set up our life in that way as well. Okay, so all of this is normal, but sometimes our thoughts kind of get dominated and fixated on things that we prefer, and it causes a disturbance that's disruptive. It gets in the way of normal life. So the suffering is just our resistance to what is happening in front of us now. If it's something we don't want, we suffer to some degree. If it's something that we want and we're not getting, we suffer to some degree. And that suffering can show up in mild forms like irritation or agitation or disappointment. Sometimes it gets more serious and it shows up as jealousy, envy, anxiety, anger, depression. And so when it gets to the more disruptive forms, then one has to kind of figure out, why is this happening to me? Because it's interfering with normal life. With that, I'll stop talking for a second and see if you got any questions about what I've said so far.
So when you say, like, when you try to resist stuff that you don't want to happen,
right? Do
you mean, like, say if I'm supposed to take a trip for my birthday and my flight gets canceled, like, is it something like trivial like that? Or I don't want my trip to get canceled, but right. Am I suffering? Because
it's mild. At that point, it's not the kind of suffering that you would like worry about or want to see a therapist about. It's just like irritation. I'm bothered. I'm disappointed. It's the milder form of suffering. It's when suffering becomes very disruptive and it causes you to miss appointments or not get out of bed in the morning or get mad at someone that you love unexpectedly because you're preoccupied with this injustice that you've experienced recently or what have you. That's when the suffering needs to be dealt with and tried to be understood better. Mild suffering is normal. I'm going to explain to you now about some of the reasons why suffering needs to be understood if it's disruptive, what you can do to kind of unravel and dismantle this dilemma. Okay, we at some point in our life think that certain things or situations or activities or accomplishments or wealth or status or relationships, something outside of us that we covet, that we want. We think that if we got this, our life will be good. our life would be wonderful. And so that's where, we want this, we like this, and we want this. And so we pursue these things. And it's rare that we get exactly what we want. But even when we do, the euphoria from getting this, the satisfaction from getting this thing doesn't last. It's not sustaining. Mm-hmm. So we conclude that we need a larger dose of the same thing in order to get that feeling of joy. Yeah, faster car, bigger house, a larger bank account. Mm-hmm. A cuter mate, all of these things, we think that if we had something better or a larger dose of the same good thing, we get that feeling again. But even though it's rare that we get everything we want, even if we do, it's still not sustaining. And that's because we've made a mistake in thinking that these things will give us a lasting dose of peace, love, and happiness. That's really what we want. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, I can say it another way that, I could say to Alexis, if you got this big house that you've been talking about, and I told you and assured you that as soon as you got it, you'd be extremely unhappy, you wouldn't want the house. Mm-mm. Okay?
Well, most people wouldn't.
Most people wouldn't, because it's not the house that they want, it's the happiness that they want. Okay? So if you are suffering and you're typically in the throes of thinking that something that's supposed to deliver peace, love, and happiness is not coming in, or you got it and it ain't sustaining you and making you happy, and you're suffering, you're upset about it. So the correction for the suffering is really to kind of look at who you are and how you are. It's to stop looking outside of yourself and look at yourself and understand that the peace, love, and happiness that you are seeking outside of yourself actually exists at the core of your being. It is who you are when you're not distracted by these things that aren't going to sustain your happiness. It's when you give up that and you realize that, if I could just live this life and not necessarily not react to what occurs for me, but just not be so bothered by it. Don't resist. What happens is going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to change this thing that's happening to you right now and make it disappear or reverse itself. So the easiest way forward is first of all, accept it, that it has happened, and your main responsibility is to decide if and how to react to that. And you want to do it from a position that you are okay, that you don't need stuff, that you are alive in this world to experience and learn and help. And when you approach your life from that perspective, it gets a lot more simple. As the saying goes, shit happens. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that. You don't run the world. Your superpowers exist from the position of how you respond to the things that do occur. And when you can operate from that perspective, the severity of the suffering that you're likely to encounter will be subdued, diminished.
Right. So when I read this, what you said, I thought of it in terms of like grieving. Mm-hmm. So we just lost grandma, right, a couple months ago. Right. And I intentionally try not to think about it. I try not to react because it upsets me.
Yes.
Am I suffering because of that?
Yes, because a quick definition for suffering is resistance. Mm-hmm. Okay, if anything that you resist, that you try to suppress and push away, all you're doing is giving it energy, just enough energy to stay. So the best thing to do when you have this thought of grieving is go with it, feel it, welcome it, take some time, sit on the side, see what thought comes to mind, see if you can remember anything nice. Let it be, rather than push it away, because that's the thing that troubling thoughts really get energized when you get upset that they even showed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let it be, and it's the everything that I talked about earlier on today is in that same vein of, you don't run the world. Thoughts come and go. Their arrival doesn't give them any particular legitimacy. If it's something that is serious, give it some attention, give it some time. It showed up for a reason that could be helpful for you. If you come up with a perspective that's useful, then you've gained from that encounter, whatever it is, even though it felt maybe a little bit uncomfortable when it first showed up. Go with the flow.
Yeah.
But understand that the things that you prefer, they're not necessarily going to make your life wonderful. That's the basic understanding that your life is already wonderful. The fact that you are alive and you have a life is wonderful. This is a flat out miracle, what's happening. All right? And when we see it as such, then we can deal with whatever we encounter. Some of it's going to be pleasant, some of it is not going to be pleasant, and hardly any of it is going to last forever. So this too shall pass, you know? So whatever it is, recognize that it's there. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's an opportunity for you to learn something. So it's a gift. The way I see all of this stuff about thoughts and about suffering and everything else is that this whole life experience is like a classroom. We're here to learn stuff, and challenges are part of that. Adversity is part of that. Grieving is part of that. All of these things are necessary. When you come to a helpful conclusion as a result of a challenging situation, it has a sense of being more permanent and useful. Like if life was always good, it'd be difficult for you to learn important lessons. Yeah. But if it's crappy, you're being surrounded by opportunities to learn something good. You know, so when your life is really messed up, you're in a good situation. How's that? Yeah. Because that's why we're here. You know, if there's nothing to be learned and everything is good, then it's time to graduate. Maybe not come back the next go round. Maybe we'll become a guardian angel the next trip.
So suffering lies in resistance.
Resistance is the simplest definition of what suffering is. Okay. And when you don't resist, you don't suffer, period.
Do you have any parting thoughts?
No, other than I enjoy having this opportunity to talk about this stuff. Usually it only exists in my head. Yeah. You know, and the fact that you asked me is deeply appreciated. So that's my parting thought. Okay. And I love you very much.
All right. Well, thank you. Right. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you agree, if you are currently suffering, you have advice now. Comment something else if you want. Like if you liked it. Definitely subscribe though. And I will see y'all in the next one. How the faucet's running and I keep looking at you.